What's up guys, Starnes here with Droid Monitor X. GearBest was nice enough to send me the OnePlus X for review. I've had it now for about a month and I'm finally getting a chance to review it here. Let's go ahead and get started. Alright guys, the OnePlus X has to be one of the best budget devices, especially the best looking budget device of 2015. It's rocking some awesome specs. It's got a 5-inch 1080p display that's 441 pixels per inch and is covered with Gorilla Glass 3. On the back here, it's rocking a 13 megapixel shooter at an f2.2 aperture. That's about equal with the iPhone 6s aperture. So while it's not the best camera in the world, it's going to do the job. And we'll kind of get into the camera more a little later on. Know that there's no optical image stabilization. It is a budget phone, so you're not really expecting that. On the front of the phone, you have an 8 megapixel shooter with a pretty large f2.4 aperture, which means it's not going to do well in low light situations, but it's a front shooter, so you're not really going to be taking crazy pictures with this. It's more for video conferencing and selfies and things of this nature. As far as internals are concerned, it's rocking a Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 quad-core processor clocked at 2.3 gigahertz with an Adreno 330 GPU, 16 gigabytes of internal storage, and 3 gigabytes of RAM. And while it is not the most powerful phone on the market for a $250 device, it really seems to perform very well. I've not had a whole lot of hangups or any lags really with this device, and really nothing to complain about. The battery is a 2,525 milliamp hour battery, and for the size of the phone, the size of the screen, the fact that it's 1080p and it has just the quad-core processor, I'm able to get some really great battery life out of this phone. I'm able to easily get all the way through the day. You guys can see there it has the micro USB port instead of a USB Type-C port, but it seems to charge up pretty quickly anyhow. It does include a micro SD card slot, and that doubles as a 2-SIM slot as well. So either you can do 1 SIM and a micro SD card, or you can do 2 SIMs, so dual SIM or 1 SIM and micro SD card. Okay, so first up we'll talk about the design of the phone. This has to be the most elegant looking phone that I've seen in a sub $300 phone. Most of the cheaper budget phones are made of plastic. You do have some that are made of metal out there, but this is more reminiscent of, say, an iPhone 4. It has glass on the front and the back, and then you have this really nice metal band all the way around. This is the champagne version. It looks kind of goldish, almost rose goldish. This button on the side here has 3 modes here. You've got a silent mode or a mute, the do not disturb mode, and then you just have your full volume mode. Okay, on the right side of the device, you have your power button, which is a little lower than I would like it. I would prefer it probably about where the volume down is, so I kind of feel like I have to reach down for the power button. Not a big fan of that. I kind of wish they would have reversed the power and the volume, but that's just personal preference. The volume rocker is there right above the power button, and then you have your micro SD card slot / dual SIM card slot right above the volume rocker. On the top, you've got a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and on the bottom, you have dual speakers and a micro USB port. Okay, so talking about the display, it is a 5-inch 1080p display with 441 pixels per inch. It's an AMOLED display, and it does get pretty bright, not as bright as the Note 5 or the Nexus 6P, but it does get bright enough. For the most part, images on the display are pretty sharp. You can definitely tell the difference between this 1080p display and the display on the Note 5 or the Nexus 6P. If you're used to QHD, then you'll definitely notice the difference on the OnePlus X. As far as viewing angles are concerned here, viewing angles are great and colors seem really vibrant on this display. For a 1080p display, it actually looks pretty good. As far as performance is concerned on this phone, it is rocking the Qualcomm Snapdragon 801 processor, which is a quad-core processor clocked at 2.3 gigahertz. It's not the fastest phone that I've ever used, but it does plenty well. As you guys can tell, there's little to no hiccups or lags when gaming or really doing anything on the phone. You're able to launch apps very quickly, and it manages memory very well, so it's not having to reload anything in the phone. So if I go close out of this application, and then I relaunch it, it's going to pick up back where I left off and not have to totally reload the app from scratch. Okay, one thing that I did notice is that when you're playing games for a long time, this area right here is going to begin to heat up, and that's probably the 801 processor getting a little hot there, but it doesn't seem to cause any issues. So like I said, there's really no lag or stuttering or anything like that that I've noticed with this phone. It seems to perform well, especially for a budget device. The OnePlus X was able to score an 870 on single-core processing and 2,260 in multi-core processing on Geekbench. Now that's about half as much as like a Nexus 6P or a Note 5, but you do have to consider this is a budget-friendly device, so it is pretty comparable to other phones in the same price range, if not a little better. The 13-megapixel camera is mediocre at best. It has that f2.2 aperture, which is pretty large considering that phones like the Galaxy S6 have the 1.9 aperture. Where you'll see a difference here is in the noise. So if we go in on this, you guys can see just how grainy and noisy this image is. It's just not super brilliant. The colors are great on the pictures. Dynamic range seems to be fine with the pictures that are shot. The main complaint I have here is just picture quality and resolution. You're not getting a ton of detail in these photos. There's a little bit of grain and noise in the photos from this camera. As far as the action of the camera, focus is fast and pictures are very quick. You guys can see how quick the shutter speed is. But as far as the actual picture quality, that's where you'll see the main difference. It does have a front-facing camera. The image quality here is just okay, but you don't need a super high-powered front-facing camera in most situations anyhow. Okay, real quickly, we'll talk about software. This phone is running Android 5.1.1 Lollipop out of the box. This is an Oxygen OS skin. Now, Oxygen OS is kind of like a custom ROM that's running on this phone, and it's by the creators of the Paranoid Android ROM. So if you remember them from back in the day, they're the ones that really put time and effort into this skin overlay for the OnePlus X. And basically, it's not anything like stock Android. It is pleasurable to use, but as you can see from the front screen here, there's no app drawer. It's nice and fluid and responsive. Pull down screen here is like a normal notification screen. Instead of quick toggles, you have app notifications, which is a little different. And then you have this 360 security app. You have a clean master application, DC Share, Popular, and Opera Mini KK Browser, and this videos application. All of those are just bloatware applications that are included. And then if we go into our settings, you have the ambient display, which just wakes up the screen whenever the sensors notice that you're getting close. That way you don't have to actually touch your phone to see what notifications have come through. There's a feature called Screen Better, which just allows you to choose the color tone of your screen so you can go warm. There's also an option here to cast the screen. So if you have a Chromecast, you're able to cast the screen. Oxygen OS includes this advanced settings option, which gives you button customization. You can customize the software buttons. You can make it a left-handed or right-handed device. You can turn on or off on-the-go reading. So if you have an on-the-go cable or an on-the-go flash drive, you can actually use that with this phone. And then you can also choose to turn on or off the notification light. All right, guys, that about wraps it up for the quick review of the OnePlus X. Once again, big shout outs to GearBest for sending this for review. All in all, this is a solid phone from the makers of the OnePlus X for a low budget price, so $250. The only thing you have to keep in mind here, it's missing NFC, it's missing a fingerprint reader, and it's missing full LTE capabilities in the USA. If you can get by without any of those things, this phone may be a phone worth looking at for under $250. Anyways, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel for more content like this in the future. You can find more of me at droidmodderx.com. Follow me on Twitter at droidmodderx. Thanks, guys, for watching. Be blessed. I'll see you in the next one.